Welcome, baseball fans. It's time once again for the Running the Bases podcast. I'm Tucker Wells, joined as always by Coach Jordan Bounds. Coach, as I look at my MLB.TV app, I see horsehide hitting leather and fresh baseball today.
Isn't it great? Isn't it great?
This is the best time of year, arguably. Everybody's undefeated.
Hope springs eternal.
Hope springs eternal. Everybody just, everybody's undefeated, and we haven't even started yet. The expectations are so high. They're so great. So welcome to the first day of spring training. We're going to begin today with some news and notes, and then going to look at the best teams in the National League on paper. Way too early to make any sort of solid predictions about such things. But let's start with who just signed recently. Mr. Ian Desmond. He finally has a home. Don't think he did that too well. His decision, the way it played out.
Well, he's having to retool himself. He goes there. Apparently, Mark DeRosa's the one that talked him into going there.
Yeah.
Certainly the qualifying offer would have made him a lot more money. But by going and playing the outfield in Texas, playing in a place where they desperately needed right-handed power, he has a chance to turn his recent downturn around. Everybody says that he'll like Texas, so he's going there with a positive mindset, kind of a Nelson Cruz sort of thing.
Well, no income tax, which is going to certainly help because he left a lot of money on the table considering what he ultimately got for this 1 year in Texas.
That's right.
Yeah, maybe he needs to talk to his agent a little bit about that.
Well, this could be the collective bargaining agreement. This is he's one of the ones that really was hurt by having a draft pick tag to his signing. And the compensation rule. It hasn't hurt that many, but it did hurt him.
Oh yeah, well certainly, and if anything, just delaying the peace of mind has been lost across the board for a lot of these players. But one such, my boy, has finally found a home, and it's right back in Chicago. Dexter Fowler back to the Cubs. The Cubs have got to be the favorite at this point.
They've got to. Well, the Cards are just they're throwing
I have people sending me articles about how the Cardinals are being overlooked once again, but you and I both know there's no way they're ever truly overlooked.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, they were how many games they win last year? And they were injured
100.
Yeah, I mean, and they had all sorts of people injured. No, you can't overlook the Cards. And as far as the Cubs go, as Fowler helps him so much. It frees up Zobrist. It makes Hayward go back to right where he is just a force. Gives them a lot better fielding team. It's another contact hitter for all the big power hitters. But it doesn't stop the fact that their fate is going to pretty much rest with Arrieta and Lester. I don't know of a team that's going to count on two pitchers as much as the Cubs will count on the two of them.
Right, but in theory they won't have to use Lackey as much perhaps, or they won't have to work him as hard. So come October, which for the first time since I guess 2004, the Cubs can plan their season around playing in October.
Right.
But that could be a dangerous thing, as is any sort of expectation in the north side of Chicago. Sneaky that they suddenly can get on base really well. Now with Hayward as well, who has become a contact hitter, an on-base guy. So, I mean, this is I think a huge coup for them. Yeah. Interesting to note that Theo Epstein's contract comes up at the end of this year. You mentioned that to me earlier.
Yeah, and he should. I mean, and their owner has said that he's got to just name his price, and his price could be just incredibly high. I mean, the Cubs have to pay it, and will gladly pay it, and they can pay it, and it's not going to hurt their luxury tax or anything like that. He could ask for $1 grillion.
Oh, he could, and he's worth it. Yeah. I mean,
he did what he said he was going to do.
Oh, absolutely, and he did it with a seemingly much greater game plan than the Houston Astros, or dare I say, maybe what the Atlanta Braves are attempting. So other big news, though, this was big topic during the offseason in the hot stove, but Salvador Perez, they in fact worked out an extension. So he now is 5 years, $52 million. Great move by the Royals.
I think so too.
Yeah, and you even said that was the most important thing on the table for them as far as their players were concerned. So of the guys that are remaining, who's going to have the most impact that's yet to be signed? Or who could have any sort of impact of the big names left to be signed? And I use big hypothetically.
Well, actually, the one who could have the biggest impact, I think, is Tim Lincecum.
Yeah.
I mean, he is he's yet to have his showcase date, which is coming up. If he is the one close to being the Cy Young Award winner, then he is going to have the biggest impact. I don't think he will, but it's possible. I think Freese. I thought all along, that he hasn't signed David Freese. If you needed a third baseman, I don't know.
I know a team that needs a third baseman.
Yeah, I know.
They play pretty close to where we're seated right now.
But we're not invest. Well, maybe.
Well, Freese, do you think with a player like David Freese, the fact that he was a World Series hero plays into where he wants to play? That it's kind of like when you get that big hit record, you don't want to play small venues anymore. You feel like you should always be selling out arenas.
Could be, but I think getting paid has a lot more to do with it than anything else.
Right. There you go.
Pedro Alvarez, is going to hit some home runs. He's going to hit around the Mendoza line, and he doesn't really have a position, but he can play some first. Austin Jackson is still out there, but Austin Jackson has become people compared him to Fowler all the time, and I thought Fowler was a far superior player.
Absolutely.
The Austin Jackson has been the last couple of years a below average offensive player.
Yeah,
and his defense gone down too.
Yeah, he seems to be very much in decline. I think that David Freese would probably be the safest insurance policy, that you could sign. I think he could be backing up in places like Boston or maybe even the Yankees. So, all right, and then so now let's go into the best teams on paper as it sits right now, as all the pieces have pretty much fallen into place. And we'll do the National League this week, and then next week we'll do the American League. So start in the National League East, separating the wheat from the shaft. Braves, Phillies, they're not going to factor in. Sad to say, right?
I don't think the Marlins will either.
No Marlins?
No.
Yeah.
But
they have the greatest hitter of all time coaching them.
That's true. They may have. They may win a lot more games than they should because they'll be playing the Phillies and the Braves so much.
Good point.
That is the only thing I think that could put them in contention. I just don't see them playing with the Mets and the Nationals.
Do you think that the NL East is the weakest division in baseball?
No.
Real quick, what do you think? What do you think is the weakest division in baseball?
The National League East has two good teams, and most other divisions have three or more good teams.
Right.
But I think the two good teams in the NL East are very good teams, very strong teams.
That's true. And it seems like that's kind of across the board.
Best pitching is in the NL East.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. With apologies to those folks out west.
Right, right.
Yeah, it seems as though in the National League, each division is running three deep with the exception of the National League East. But, the Marlins are a wild card. That is, they should just change their name to the Miami Wildcards because that is what they are. And they kind of patented the success of the wild card.
Yes, that's true.
All right, but then so the Nationals, how will they do with Dusty Baker?
I think Baker is just the type of manager for a veteran team like they have, with people like Worth and Papelbon and people that need veterans that need to kind of come back a little bit, need to get healthy. I've never thought much of the way Dusty handles a pitching staff, but there he's got some horses, and I don't I think Dusty might be he could be just what they need.
Yeah. Now they still have the Papelbon issue to figure out, if I'm correct. Yeah, I think he's still lingering around on that roster.
Yes, he is. He will be there, and he will be their closer, and kind of amazing. But
yeah,
I don't think Harper in a couple of years is going to be the first billionaire player, apparently.
Yeah, by virtue of contract alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Forget the Under Armour sponsorship and Gatorade. Yeah,
right.
He'll be with an opt-out clause after 3 years, of course.
Yeah. Right.
But even with they didn't. What is the most significant piece that they added?
Dusty Baker.
Exactly. Meanwhile,
and they lost Zimmerman.
They lost Zimmerman and Desmond, and they were in the sweepstakes for a lot of players that they just did not get. So, and that leads us to the Mets. So, front runner to win that division.
I think so with that pitching staff. I don't, but I'm not willing to give it to them yet.
Yeah. What do you need to see the most? Where do you think the biggest question is with them?
I still don't know that they can hit.
Right.
I mean, they don't get in without Cespedes going just nuts last year for about a month and a half. I mean, and there's no guarantee that he's going to do that again, despite how many cars he may have.
Right. He bought one car that looks like the Batmobile, though, so he's trying to fit into the superhero rhetoric. So,
Right.
So good job by him.
And he rode a horse to spring training or today. So
if you were a ball player, if you were a ball player, which team would you love to be on the most? Because for me, it'd be the Mets. I'd love to be a part of that group, especially this year.
Oh, see, now I've never looked at it in terms of who's playing there, but where.
True.
I mean, I've always thought of the city I would want to. It's hard for me to think of myself as relating to a bunch of 20-year-olds. I'm 60-some years old.
They don't have to know that.
I just don't see myself like I'd love to play with Harper.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm younger than you, and I wouldn't want to play with Harper. I would be on the Papelbon side of the line, going probably for maybe I'd just try and punch him in the stomach.
I don't think I'd want to play for the Mariners.
Yeah, that's not as much fun loving.
I can't see getting instruction from the greatest hitter alive.
Oh, you mean the Marlins?
Marlins, yeah.
I was going to say the Mariners. Yeah, I'd play for
the Mariners, yes, I would. But I mean, the Marlins, I don't see myself playing for.
Yeah. Hey, Donnie Baseball maybe would make up for it. I don't know. All right, so let's move on to the West. Now, the National League West, did they have the greatest shakeup with what happened in Arizona, getting Greinke and the trade for Miller? Did the Diamondbacks win the offseason?
I'm not willing to say that. I mean, they have, with Pollock and Goldschmidt, they probably have the best 1-2 player punch in the National League.
Oh, easily.
But they had no pitching, and now they have, two good starters, very good starters.
Good, not great?
Well, I'm not willing to say that Shelby Miller is great yet.
What about that other guy?
Well, Greinke is, he's never had a year like this last one, though, but he's exceptional. I think they're getting Tyler Clippard is a big move for them as well. They need more protection. I think the back end of their rotation is still weak.
Well, the young kid, that Corbin, I believe. Forgive me. Let me look it up here. But he was, their best pitcher coming into the end of last season.
Right.
Less pressure on him, of course. I looked at
Sure. It's going to make their whole pitching staff better by adding these two.
Right.
You heard it here first. But
that's breaking news, folks.
They're also a team, though, that you look at their first 5 hitters, and but looking at the bottom of the, I don't know.
Corbin, it is Corbin, and then they round out the rotation with De La Rosa and then Ray. Yeah. But I mean, looking across this lineup, Segura at shortstop, that's a significant upgrade. And then Peralta could rake it at times last year, and then still Yasmani Tomas, your front runner for Rookie of the Year last year.
Didn't quite work out.
Yeah. So, but okay, so Rockies, thanks for trying. We'll skip past that.
They will probably lose more games than any team. They'll probably lose more games than the Braves.
Yeah, which that's saying something, to be sure. And then the Padres, we think
they're rebuilding now.
They are rebuilding. Lovely weather there, though.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the two-headed monster of the Dodgers and the Giants. Start with the Dodgers. They had a very tumultuous offseason.
The Dodgers they're signing people like Kendrick and Kazmir. These are things just holding them for a year or two when all of these super prospects that they've invested in come to play.
That is a good point.
And they're a year or two away from, they're going to go ahead, I guess, and give the Giants their due because it's their year. They'll be competitive. I think one of them is very likely to be the wild card, be one of the wild cards. It's very. I really think there are only 8 teams vying for the 5 spots in the National League, but it could be any of those teams.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Dodgers farm system still ranks first in baseball across everybody who's doing their breakdown of the farm system. So, and they've certainly got the resources, and LA is a pretty laid back town most of the time. So, hey, all right. So that gives us the Giants.
And they still have the best pitcher in baseball.
They do indeed. But now they don't have his backup.
Right.
There's no Starsky to the Hutch or whatever.
Scott Kazmir.
Well, yeah, he's good. He's no Greinke, but he's good. But then the Giants, it's an even year, so why are we even talking anymore, right?
Certainly got to think they're the odds-on favorite. Well, I guess the Dodgers have still got to be the favorite in that division. I'm not sure why. It is an even year.
True.
They have invested in a lot of projects, I guess. Denard Span hasn't played forever. Samardzija has never really lived up to his potential. He's thrown, gives you innings. Johnny Cueto looks like time is catching up.
But there again,
they also have Righetti too. That
exactly.
So.
They have Righetti. They have Bochy, and it's a culture thing in San Francisco, much like what's in New York, and we're about to get to Chicago. That it's a good place to play baseball. You probably have a good feeling in the clubhouse. Can't say the same for maybe like the Red Sox or maybe even the Blue Jays, but at any rate, so I think that the Giants, though, have got to be the favorite in that division over the Dodgers because the Giants have such steady, consistent hitting. And the Dodgers, who are you going to for when you need the big hit?
Well, and the Royals have really shown in recent years that when it gets to playoff time and you see nothing but the top pitchers that are still pitching in the game that aren't hurt, you're seeing, with the time between games and stuff, you've got to do the little things to win in the playoffs. And the Giants do the little things better than do the Dodgers. Now, who knows? The Snakes could end up, who would have last year? What did the Twins win? 86 games or something like that, and
85, 86.
Yeah, whatever. And we were thinking that they might win 20. I mean,
Yeah.
They looked.
That might have been too much betting of the under 20, but
Well, no, I mean,
I see where you're
I'm
going
being
with this.
facetious. I didn't think much of them. I think I thought Paul Walter would just quit halfway through.
You did make that call. Good thing you didn't put money on that.
Really.
83 games.
Okay,
They went 83 and 79.
So who knows? I mean, and they were certainly a surprise that nobody figured that. And the Snakes could. I mean, they could be a big surprise. Greinke pitches like he did last year. And Shelby Miller pitches like what they traded for. I mean, or the worth they seem to have put into him.
Yeah, well, I mean, Miller was the victim of playing on a ball club that didn't help him win any of the games. No. A lot of great starts there.
Yeah, oh, sure.
On Zack Greinke, I do believe you're being unfair. He is, in the last 3 years, he went 15-4 in 2013 with a 2.63 ERA. He went 17-8 with a 2.71 ERA in 14, and last year, of course, 19-3 with a 1.66. So that's pretty good 3 years stretch.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying the year that he had last year was unbelievable.
Well, true.
Saw
a couple of that.
You start looking into other stats and things, and looking into his WHIP and everything else. He has just an incredible statistical year last year.
This is true. Well, speaking of such things, no one had a greater statistical run in the pitching department than Jake Arrieta. And when you say anything that's unbelievable, it kind of begins and ends with the Cubs' success. So, NL Central, is it a Cubs world that we're now living in?
No.
No.
You've got to beat the Cardinals before you put the Cardinals out. Who won the division last year?
The Cardinals.
How many games did they win?
100.
And
that was with
half
the
team
B
injured.
squad. Yeah.
Right. So no, it's not a Cub world yet.
Yeah, it's going to be a Cub apocalypse though when it actually comes to fruition, which it seems inevitable at this point. But there's the Pittsburgh. First off, apologies to the Milwaukee Brewers and the Cincinnati Reds, both rebuilding, obviously. So, but are the Pirates being overlooked? First off, and then secondly, is their window coming to an abrupt close if they don't put it together this year?
Gosh, I don't. What did the Pirates do?
Exactly.
We see everything the Cubs did. The Cardinals. They just got healthy. That's
right.
I mean, and they did sign Leak. But what did the Pirates do? And it does seem like you get into number 2 on down, their starting staff is a little shaky. They've,
rolling the dice on people like Jonathan Neese and Vogelsong.
I know.
Yeah. And Garrett Cole had a kind of a outlandish statistical year last year, and Liriano was very solid, but that 1-2 punch.
Liriano,
that doesn't stand up against the likes of the Dodgers.
He has not, and Liriano has had an injury-soaked past from having pitched too many innings.
Sure, certainly. All right, so going across the board, who wins the National League East Division?
I'll say the Nationals.
Going with the Nationals. I'm going with the Mets. Central. Come on. You know you want to.
I want to.
You did it last year.
I'll say the Cubs.
There we go. I'm going to go with the Cubs as well. And then in the West? Giants. I will echo that. And then who are your 2 wild cards?
Ooh, the Mets.
Yeah.
Get them in there. And the Cards.
I'm going to say that with the Mets winning the NL East, that the Nationals do not make the playoffs. There's a hot take for you. And then my 2 wild cards, I have to believe that the Pirates will be there. And they need to win that division. But I think once again, they'll be in wild card purgatory, and then it'll be the Diamondbacks. I think the Dodgers and the Nationals are both going to miss the playoffs as I'm looking at it right now. And of course, all of this is on paper or on a screensaver. So,
yeah, I'm interested. I got to see like who the teams are come the middle of July, when the Dodgers may start bringing up some of this unbelievable talent that they have.
Right.
That could change things a lot, and they have the resources to change things. I do think it's very possible to have the Mets and the Nationals in because they're going to be their division is so weak,
right?
And they, the other teams, the Pirates have to play the Cubs and the Cards a whole lot.
Oh, that's true.
So I mean that's.
And it's certainly there are 8 horses that are in true contention, but the Marlins always the wild card.
Right,
they could be right there as well. All right, so there you go. On paper, way too early to say anything definitive of these types, but we just did it anyway. Going first to third with the Oscars that just went. Did you watch the Oscars?
Yes, I did.
What did you think?
Pretty much as predicted.
Yeah. And so Chris Rock, your thoughts on him and, of course, the handling of this very sensitive issue that's going on with the Academy and not representing enough minorities.
I thought Chris Rock handled it really well. And Chris Rock is not the type of person I would think that would handle it very well, quite frankly. But I thought he did a good job. I didn't think much of his bringing his daughter out to sell Girl Scout cookies. That was a little odd.
That's a little odd.
But
I feel uncomfortable when celebrities parade their children for the sake of a bit.
Yeah, and I don't know that he and Will Smith will be, watching the next Super Bowl together.
Right. Going first to third, the issue of minority hirings and equal opportunity in management is really, this is a hot issue. Or is it not being talked about enough in baseball? It's a big deal in the NFL. They have the Rooney Rule, and we're also, of course, finally tackling the inequality with women in sports and sports management and sports broadcast. But within baseball, minorities in management, what's your take on it? How's baseball doing with equal opportunity?
Not very well.
I agree.
I mean,
not very well either.
Last year, Freddie Gonzalez was the only minority manager in baseball at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's true. We did have McClendon for a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. But and there have been very few. I mean, there hasn't. Minority managers began with Frank Robinson. I mean, there's not like a long history of minority managers, but
right.
We've had at times a lot more percentage-wise than we have had. Now, we do have 3 now. That's
right.
Nothing to write home about. I've heard it hinted in several circles that part of the problem may be the new GM who is just completely fascinated with sabermetrics and new statistical ways of management, and the belief that Hispanic baseball does not play to that this stereotype may be influencing or stopping certain Hispanic candidates from getting a job.
Right.
That's really unfortunate if that is the case, but it might be.
It might be. The Dave Roberts hire in the LA is pretty significant, because they're a very sabermetrics stacked front office.
Right.
So, and as one of the
I don't
premier,
think the problem has been with African Americans. The problem has been with Hispanics.
Right. And so going over history, of the famous or the most successful minority managers, starting with say Philippe Alou, do you think that he was given his fair due in his time? And
yes,
sure,
yes. I mean, it's different now. If the new general manager, the stereotype general manager, is saying that the way they play baseball in Venezuela, the way they play baseball in Cuba, the way they play baseball in Puerto Rico, if it is not in accordance to sabermetric standards, that pitchers do go, they pitch different types of innings, and that the not hitting cutoff men, but trying to show great athletic prowess and this sort of thing. It is somewhat of a different game, but I mean, it's ridiculous to think that that Philippe Alou could not have adjusted to a new type of X's and O's approach, as well as any one of a number of white managers that are around.
True. So as you look at the major league landscape right now of managers, who do you think is the most overlooked in the minority? Would you say Dave Stewart? He certainly got passed up more than a few times. Now he's in a front office role.
Yeah, he's not passed up anymore. I mean, he's in a position that's higher than manager.
Yeah, and an agent too.
Right.
So
I think there are. I think here in Atlanta we have two very good. I think Eddie Perez has. I mean, after all, this was Mad Dog's catcher.
Right.
That alone gives you, somebody who can handle a pitching staff that always number one, job of a manager.
And hey, let's not forget about J-Lo.
Right.
He was the number 47's.
Right.
We can't say it here.
Right.
The common joke slang for it, but he was Glavin's guy.
Yeah.
So there's some cred right there too.
I don't think that Javi's ready to manage in the big leagues. Eddie might be able to.
Right. Now to that point, Andrew Jones, he's back in a advisory role.
Yeah, both he and Chip are back together again.
Yeah.
I think Terry Pendleton is the other person in the Braves uniform that
I've long thought that, even when they hired Freddie. But go on.
But there are both cores, Alex and Joey. I think Hensley Mullins in San Francisco is a very good. Is a very good candidate. I mean, he's been with Bochy for several years. Speaks a bunch of languages. Sandy Alomar Jr. There are a lot of really stellar candidates out there.
In St. Louis, they have the beloved Jose Akindo. Never offered a managerial position as far as I know.
And I was disappointed he was not offered the position when La Russa left.
I thought so as well. It was very curious to me that didn't come through. Now, I know Matheny was in high favor as well.
Right.
But do you think that baseball owners, we do have a minority owner in Anaheim with Artie Moreno. So is the ownership collective conscious enough? Do we need to have something of a Rooney Rule within Major League Baseball that's front and center?
I heard Manfred address that somewhat, in that it is difficult to make a team manage, or a team conduct a certain type of search if they have to make a hire in season. Quite often, it's an interim manager who is a coach that's on the team, and quite often he has the position going into next year. So how can you say no? You can't give it to this person. There are also situations where organizations want particular people, and like last year, apparently the Twins made a really good decision in getting their Hall of Famer alumni manager in Molitor back. He did, by all accounts, a great job, and he is a hometown hero. Now, if they may have said, all right, Paul, we're going to we really want to make a pitch to you next weekend, or let's say the weekend of the 14th. Bring your wife and your family down here. We're going to go. We'll go
nice steak dinner.
We'll go out on the yacht and do this sort of thing. Blah blah blah.
Right.
And they said, well, let's interview a minority. Bob, call up Dave Stewart, see if he can meet with us tomorrow.
Right.
Is that giving him the chance to analyze the situation and the landscape around him?
Absolutely
and
not.
Is it a fault of the Twins that they want to? If the Braves wanted to hire Chipper to be their manager in 17, and who's to say that they should be interviewing Joey Cora?
Right.
So
Yeah, and who's going to tell him who would, this isn't like the NBA where a commissioner can veto a certain, a la the Chris Paul trade back a few years ago with David Stern. When a team makes its hire, it's not as, and that example with the Twins, that happens so frequently. And they can say that, oh, well, we interviewed so-and-so. We had Dave Stewart in for a meeting, but not afforded the same circumstances, the same breadth of time. And so, for a game that prides itself on policing itself, do you think that in 2016 this issue is going to police itself?
I hope it does. I mean, with the hiring of, and let's be real, if Dusty Baker is successful this year, finally takes the Nationals to the World Series, and everything, people are going to have be looking a lot more in the other direction.
Sure.
And you're right, the Dodgers hire is huge.
Yeah, I would say that that's even more so, because I think if the Dodgers finally reach the promised land this year or next with Dave Roberts at the helm and a Cuban phenom who now that's kind of a gray area as to whether or not Puig actually is a phenom.
They have other Cubans that are more phenoms right now. Exactly,
in their system. Then I believe you will see a first Cuban owner and more Latin American, I keep doing this, a Cuban manager of a major league team, and more Latin American managers. So as it stands right now, if you're the Braves, or not the Braves, but let's say you're a major league team out there in desperate need of a new manager, who would be the first minority person that you would want to hire?
Joey Cora.
Yeah.
I would want to interview a lot of them. It might. I know that Mullins, for instance, speaks several languages. If I had a pitching staff that needed a manager who spoke several languages, that might make me consider him more. A lot of it would depend on the type of team I had. So I think there are just a lot of, maybe I had a team with a bunch of Brian Harpers on it, type players. Bryce Harper. I do that all the time.
That's all right. He deserves it.
If I had a bunch of Bryce Harpers on the team, I would maybe a Terry Pendleton would be the type of manager I would need.
Yeah. Interesting about Cora, graduate of Vanderbilt University. Go Commodores. That's for you, Dad. Okay. Yeah, he would be an excellent choice. And, it's interesting to me that in the history of baseball and, the first minority manager being Frank Robinson. And what year was that?
I don't remember.
But did he ever win the World Series?
No.
So the only one to win a World Series, as far as my mind can recall, was Ozzie Guillen with the White Sox.
Maybe I'd have to look that up. But
well, Coach, as of right now, the Braves and the Orioles are tied 4-4 in the bottom of the 10th. Cincinnati's beating Cleveland, Pittsburgh beat Detroit, and Toronto beat Philadelphia. We have finals. This might be the greatest moment for the Braves all season, as far as we know. So
I think they're greatest. I think the Braves are going to get better as the year goes on because they're going to start off awful.
Oh yeah,
but come middle of June, we might start bringing some people up.
Now you had a very hot take when they traded Simba that you would not go to a Braves game this year, even if given the ticket. Do you still hold to that, good sir? Will you not attend?
No,
you're not going.
No, I'll go.
All right, you'll go. It's last season at Turner Field. We have to go at some point.
I'll go.
All right. Well, as always, thank you to everyone listening on the internet radio landscape and watching us on our fabulous YouTube channel. Hey, over there. Hey to there. All right. So you can find us all the time, anytime at runningthebases.com. Download the podcast on SoundCloud or on iTunes and check it out on YouTube. Leave your comments, leave your feedback. We'll talk about things that the good general baseball populace wants to talk about as well. So, but for Coach Bounds, I am Tucker Wells. This is the Running the Bases podcast. We're coming into home and we're safe. Coach, have a good night.
Good night.